In the 4.2 Archon questline, the 500-year plan of the second Hydro Archon was finally revealed. A plan that was meant to trick the highest authority in all of Tevat into believing the prophecy meant to doom Fontaine happened in its entirety. It involved a tremendous amount of effort from Furina, and for all intents and purposes, it succeeded. Everything in the prophecy did happen just as it was foretold, but due to the Hydro Archon's efforts, total loss was averted. So given Furina's involvement in this grand deception, why exactly was Furina even granted a vision in the first place? Wouldn't Celestia have been absolutely pissed at being tricked? Well, as it turns out, there may be a reason for this, and in this video, we're going to explore exactly that. Before we dive into that, if you want to see more Genshin Impact content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Throughout the Archon's storyline in Fontaine, the prophecy has been the central point of conflict for all the main characters. I won't go into the details of recapping everything, but essentially, Celestia had punished the first Hydro Archon and the citizens of Fontaine due to them committing a grave sin. They had essentially created humans by merging the Oceanids with the Primordial Sea, something that for some unknown reason is a big no-no. The prophecy was meant as a punishment for Fontainians for going against this taboo. The second Hydro Archon, Focalors, spent 500 years developing an exit strategy that would allow Celestia to think the prophecy took place, but at the same time, save the people of Fontaine from certain death. This essentially involved Furina, who is the human version of the Oceanid Focalors, to play the role of the Hydro Archon while Focalors herself worked in the background. After the dust settled, Furina got to continue her life as a normal human. She functionally didn't have powers to begin with, only an abnormally long life due to the curse Focalors had placed on her. At the end of her companion quest, however, Furina was granted a vision. According to Furina's vision story, she is well aware that visions are often granted to humans who have either a really strong will or a fervent wish, but in this circumstance, the vision she was granted felt more to her like a reward, a payment or recompense for the duty she had carried out in saving all of Fontaine. Now, this in itself is odd, because if visions are granted by Celestia directly, why would she be granted a reward given her involvement in tricking them? The easier answer here would be, well, Celestia was tricked and just didn't know what the Hydro Archon had done, and by extension, how Furina was involved. But that still doesn't explain why Furina felt it was more akin to a reward than out of some strong dream she personally had. It also seems a little weird that the gods of Tevat itself wouldn't have at least realized or noticed the throne of Hydro being destroyed, a primordial dragon regaining its full power, and the people of Fontaine still largely being alive. It just seems unlikely that they wouldn't notice all these big changes, and if we assume that the Heavenly Principles is aware, then why would it reward Furina with a vision? Well, as it turns out, there is something that may help explain both the fact that Furina received the vision and why it seemed like a reward to her. In Neuvillette's lore, specifically the vision story, he mentions that after the great battle between the usurper and the second who came, they both worked together and created the Gnosis due to the usurper losing their absolute authority. Just to be clear, the usurper here also refers to the primordial one and the heavenly principles. After the creation of the Gnosis, an order was said to have been established and since then upheld. The way it's written makes it sound like a system has been implemented, a set of laws that bind how Tevat function and was then automated to work in the background with little to no intervention. It goes on to say that from that day onwards, whenever a person wishes reached the heavens, the 7 overseers of the material realm, likely referring to the Archons, were duty-bound to grant said person a gift. Even if these overseers were not aware of what the wish might entail, as long as it went past the threshold into the heavens, they were required to impart a shattered shard of their mastery to that person, which likely refers to a vision. This basically implies that the Archons have little control over who gets what vision, much like what Raiden A had mentioned before, and if the system really ran on its own, nor would Celestia. Their role is functionally to grant anyone who has met the minimum requirements to receive a vision. Now, recall that due to the actions of the Hydro Archon Focalors, the throne of Hydro no longer exists, and the authority over Hydro has been returned to the dragon sovereign Neuvillette. The final line of the vision text states that while Neuvillette doesn't have any relation to the heavens itself, nor does he want one, he still acknowledges the dreams, wishes, and wills of the humans. It implies that he has technically taken over the job of the overseer, and those who meet the requirements of the system the Gnosis supports will continue to be given visions, though this time, instead of those visions being a part of an Archon, it would be parts of the Hydro Sovereign himself. This is why I think Furina felt the vision she had received had connotations of a reward, because it likely was one. It's not surprising to think that the minute Furina had reached the minimum requirements, Neuvillette, who is now facilitating this process, granted her a vision tinged with some feelings of gratitude for all that she has done for Fontaine. The fact that the system is described to run without much input and the Archons being functionally a cog in the machine may also be why Celestia hasn't stopped the distribution of visions, especially to a person who has bamboozled them. As long as the Overseer exists to apportion their mastery out to those who deserve them, and the dreams of individual crosses a minimum threshold, Celestia wouldn't even be aware as the system is working as it should. Another interesting proof of this is if you look at the holders of each vision in Fontaine. Those that have Usia alignment, like Lynette, often has a counterclockwise pattern, while those who are Numa aligned, like Charlotte and Fremine, have clockwise patterns. Even the top parts of the vision holders have slightly different patterns to them. However, when we look at Furina's vision, it's a combination of both Numa and Usia. Coincidentally, Neuvillette himself has mentioned that after regaining the dragon's authority, he also now has full control over both Numa and Usia. So, given Furina received her vision right after the events of the 4.2 story, and that each vision is a shard of mastery from the Overseer, Archon, Dragon, whatever you want to call it, it's very likely that the vision Furina received is one that came from Neuvillette. Her holder may even show some evidence of this, given it has patterns of both Usia and Numa, and seemingly even dragon teeth that lines the frame, but that's a bit of wishful thinking on my part. Nevertheless, the fact that the most recent person to receive a vision in Fontaine can also use both Numa and Usia alignment despite being just human lends to this idea greatly. So it seems that the process in which one is granted a vision is more like an automated system, working in the background as part of Tevat's laws, and why the heavens didn't stop Furina receiving a vision despite her involvement. As long as an individual passes a certain point, a vision will be given to them regardless of who they are or what they've done, because simply put, Celestia just thinks the system is working without issue. No one is checking it. So essentially, they were tricked, but because the visions are given out in this way, they just wouldn't be aware, as they have no reason to check. This does not, however, explain what the purpose of visions truly are, only how they may be granted. That said, I have some ideas about that, so look out for a video in the future. As for Furina, the answer to the video of why she received a vision is simply because she deserves one, at least as far as the system in place is concerned. Perhaps Neuvillette even had a hand in greasing the wheels a little bit, but who really knows? That does it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you think this is why Furina got her vision, or if you have an alternative idea, feel free to share it. If you found it interesting or entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.